Would you all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for the Star-Spangled Banner. Sorry, for the National Anthem.
Present arms. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Order. Up.
Thank you, chorus group. Very nicely done. Good morning. It truly is an honor to welcome our veterans to Hollis Brookline Middle School today. This Thursday, November 11th, is the anniversary that marks the end of World War I hostilities between the Allied powers and the Central Powers in 1918, which my great-grandfather, Colonel Charles P. Hayward, fought in. On Veterans Day, we thank all of our veterans for their services to the United States. We are forever grateful for the freedoms we have today because of your bravery and sacrifice. Led by our chorus teacher, Mrs. Spencer, our students have been practicing for weeks to perform for you today. I want to take a moment to thank our students, as well as Mrs. Spencer, for their hard work in getting the students ready for today. Last week, students and staff spent time during Rock talking about the characteristics of a hero. Characteristics such as courage, bravery, and sacrifice were among the most common responses. Characteristics that all of you embody by serving in each of your respective military branches. As we think about what it means to be a hero, I want you to remember that these men and women, our veterans, are the heroes we thank. Thank you, veterans, for your sacrifice for our freedoms. You are our role models. Thank you for your service. Students, on our way out today, please be sure to say thank you to our veterans. We will now have our 8th grade students, Eve Lovering and Chantel Risitano, come up and share their written pieces. Eve, please come down.
Some at sea and some on land, some in the air, they were always there. There for us in times of trouble, there for us in times of distress, there for us in times of struggle, so we should try our very best to say thank you to those who really care because they were always there.
Very nice, Eve, thank you. And Chantel?
Good morning, my name is Chantel Risitano, and I would like to read my poem called Thanks to You. I I salute for the American flag for its stars and stripes. I salute for the servicemen and women, both young and old, who fought for our flag, our country, the United States of America. I salute to the ones who fought for us so we didn't have to sacrifice. The ones who fought on land, air, and sea. I salute to all, Navy, Army, Air Force, Marines, and Coast Guard. I salute to all those who answered to the service call so we could live free and without fear. We thank you for your service.
Thank you, Chantel. We now have Ms. Flamino, who is going to do the introduction of our veterans.
Good morning. I will read the name of our veterans. If you would like to, please stand and we would be happy to recognize you. Bob Barnes, U.S. Air Force. Jim Belanger, U.S. Navy. Greg Darbone, U.S. Army. Arlene D'Arbone, U.S. Army. Bob Delia, U.S. Army. John Furlins, U.S. Marine Corps. Houston Galloway, U.S. Air Force. Robert Glover, U.S. Air Force. Richard Kolb, U.S. Army. Paul LaFlamme, U.S. Air Force. Ethan Lewis, U.S. Air Force. Alan Locicero, U.S. Navy. George Lusick, Jr., U.S. Army. Chris Lucier, U.S. Air Force. Pat Moquin, Army National Guard. Bruce Moran, U.S. Army. Billy Ponders, U.S. Air Force. George Robinson, U.S. Marine Corps. Kevin Walton, U.S. Air Force. Rami Walton, U.S. Army. Beth Williams, U.S. Army. Thank you.
We have a few keynote speakers today. The first is going to be Mr. Bruce Moran.
Want some help? No, as long as I don't touch the floor. This piece that I'll be presenting today was written by a great American. He was a poet, he's a songwriter, but most of all, he's a great patriot. and this is Old Glory. They call me Old Glory, and I fly over this land I love. But I am more than just the flag that you see wave above. I've stood for freedom and for faith 200 years and more. Your fathers' fathers cherished me, and their fathers gone before. I was born in Philadelphia, where they wrote the Declaration. Now, I'm in the homes of patriots all across this nation. You'll see my sweet red, white, and blue on Rocky Mountain towers. But mostly, I'm in the hearts of those who love this land of ours. Now, my red is for the blood that stained the grass on Bunker Hill. My white is for the light that shines on soldiers' graves so still. My blue is for the hope that morning skies bring us each day. And these colors join to make me strong, and they will never fade away. I've flown over the brave young men in the jungles where I'd lead them. You'll see me at the Alamo, the shrine of Texas freedom. And I wave over Pearl Harbor, where some forever sleep. And you'll see me in old veterans' eyes and in the memories they keep. And even now in the hills of Arlington, where just the other day, another hero found his rest, and now where the best he lay. And I was wrapped in a tight triangle for the grieving widow there, and I felt her tears fall on my cloth as she closed her eyes in prayer. Now, I know today misguided souls might say, "You be a fool to teach your children some old rhyme that you once learned in school." Well, I tell you now, that pledge you make with your hand upon your chest is a pledge to honor those who gave their all, that you be blessed. That you be blessed to live in freedom without hunger, without fear. That you be blessed to raise a family. So for all your given years, remember those who fought and died for you. They do it all again. So when you pledge allegiance, you thank and honor them. And to my country's sons and daughters, this pledge I'll make so true. You fight to keep me flying high, and I'll inspire you. You'll see me waving in the breeze above the old town square, and you'll know that by my colors, that's Old Glory flying there. Yes, they call me Old Glory, and I've been around a while. And sure, I've got a rip and tear from a long and dusty mile. But God put me here so that I would fly from sea to shining sea. And I swear I'll live forever as long as you believe in me.
Thank you, Bruce. We have our second keynote speaker, Mr. Chris Lucio, with the presentation of flags.
Yes, please. I need some help, so thanks for pitching in. It's just a piece of cloth, right? Why do we make such a big deal about it? A beautiful poem. I think it gives you a sense of probably how important it is and how poignant it is and how valuable it is. But why? You know, when our nation first started, it was 13 individual colonies. Any one of them would have fallen to Britain very easily. And they knew that they had to stand together in order to take on this common enemy. And that was the only way that they would be able to do that. So they united. And altogether, they were able to defeat the British and establish this nation. But every state, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, Connecticut, is in itself its own little country with its own governing body. We all fall under the Constitution of the United States. Every state can have its own laws as long as they don't violate that Constitution. When we sing the national anthem, we're singing about our union. It's not about a landscape. Landscapes are beautiful everywhere. It's about a belief in something that says, as much as you were born with arms, legs, and eyelashes, you were born with other things too. You were born with rights. Rights to be able to speak freely, to worship freely, not to be given undue suffering, given due process under law. Those are the things that unite us. So when we sing our national anthem and we wave our flag, that flag is a symbol of that belief that makes us a united nation. I never set out to be a flag collector, but one day I was at a flea market, and this is where my story kind of begins. And then you're going to understand why you're standing here in a second, okay? I was walking through this flea market, and on this table I saw this really old flag. And I picked it up and I peeled back the stars and I looked at them, and I noticed there was something different about them. You guys hold this up and don't let it touch the floor, okay? Just try not to. You take that end. You take that end and you hold it up. And this is that flag. This is the flag that I found that day. I could see that it was very old. And I noticed there was something really different about the stars. Something that was different from what I was accustomed to seeing. You'll notice that there are 6 rows of 8 stars. And they come in kind of a zigzag pattern. Now, I'd seen a 48-star flag before, but I'd never seen it in this zigzag pattern. And I was curious as to why this one was a little bit different. Maybe the guy didn't know what he had. He thought it was just an old flag. He sold it to me for $15. And I bought it. And I did a little research on it, and I learned a little bit about it, and I'll tell you about that in just a moment. Thanks, guys. Oh, thank you, Beth. That started my curiosity about this beautiful flag. To give you just a little bit of history, and you probably already know this, and I'm going to tell you right now that of all the flags I'm going to show you, this is the only one that's not an original. It's a reproduction. Hold that one up, please. We're all familiar with this. Those 13 original colonies that united to become this nation, the flag that they established, one of them, there were actually multiple designs, but this is the one with which we are the most familiar. 13 stars representing the 13 colonies, and 13 stripes likewise. And the belief was that as more states, as more colonies ratified the Constitution, which means adopted its principles, they would add a star and they would add a stripe to represent that united states. Again, this is the only one that is not an original. It's a reproduction. Everything else from here on is going to be an original flag. So as more states were added to this union of states, they started adding those stripes and stars. Well, it got to the point where it was becoming the pinstripes of America. The stars and pinstripes, I meant. There was obviously going to be too many stripes to be able to be accommodated on the flag. They reverted back to the original 13 stripes and continued to add stars. Okay? So that's kind of the origins of our flag, how it came about. We all know that this flag here that stands before us on the right side of the stage has 50 stars, and we're familiar with it. We know the pattern. It's been that way for about, 60 61 years it's been like that. There are people here, many people in this room, who remember the flag having 48 stars before Alaska and Hawaii became states. But Alaska and Hawaii didn't become states at the same time. And very few people actually know that there was a flag in between the 48 and the 50. This one is actually rare. And you may not notice it right away because it does look very similar to the 50-star flag. It has the same zigzag pattern, but you'll notice that the right side of the pattern is a little bit different. It's actually 7 rows of 7 stars, 49 stars. It was only like this for 1 year, and that's because Alaska and Hawaii came in within a few months of each other, but Congress only makes a flag official on the 4th of July of the next following cycle. And Alaska came before the 4th of July, and Hawaii came afterwards. So for 1 year, the flag had 49 stars. And again, these are rare because the flag companies knew that there was going to be a new version of it, so they didn't make very many of these. And I'm very lucky I have 3 of them in my collection. Okay, so that's the Alaska flag. And that came in 1959 on July 4th. And I'm sorry, that came in 1960, and 1959 is when the flag went to the, I said that wrong. That one did come in 1959, and then 1960 is when the flag became 50 stars. That's just 4 years before I was born. Okay, that 48-star flag, which was made official in 1912, looked like this. I appreciate your work, guys. I really do. This is the one that flew over World War II, all the battleships. If you watch old war movies, you'll see the flag looks like this. You see it's a very orthogonal pattern of 6 by 8 stars. Now, I haven't told you why the other one I showed you before was different. This is the flag that was made official in 1912 when Arizona and New Mexico became states. They ratified the Constitution, became states in 1912. This was, at the time, the longest running flag in the United States until the 50-star flag became the longest running one just a few years ago. So you might be asking yourself, why did that other flag have a different pattern? Well, in 1911, they knew that the flag was going to be changing to have 48 stars, and flag companies started producing them. But the official design hadn't come out yet until 1912. So that flag that I found at that flea market that day was actually a 1911 version that ended up not being adopted by Congress. That's why it had the zigzag pattern and not the pattern that we just saw just now. So that one was pretty old. 1911 was when that flag was made. That's 110 years ago. And you guys can attest to the fact that you could see right through it, couldn't you? It was kind of fragile. If you pulled really hard, it probably would have torn. In 1908, July 4th, Oklahoma became a state. And the flag went from what it was to 46 stars. It was like this for just 4 years. You'll notice this one is very faded, and the white has kind of become sort of a brownish color. I don't dare wash them because I'd hate for something to happen to them, for them to get damaged. You see the unique pattern of stars on this? That's 46. 1908. They just keep getting older and older, and I've actually got 3 of these as well in my collection. I said before that I never set out to be a flag collector, but it seems like every time I saw an opportunity to pick one up without spending too much money, because if I spent too much money, I'd have to tell my wife. I tried to, I'd pick it up, and it's just turned into this collection. And I have so much reverence for the U.S. flag, having defended it, that I just kept going. Okay, so that was 46. Okay, let's see. July 4th of 1896, Utah became a state, and the flag at that time went from what it was to having 45 stars. In my collection, I have two of these. This is the nicer of the two. At the time I picked this one up, I really thought, wow, I'm really digging deep into history now. This was 1896. It's a whole different century, you know, 1800s. You know, we watch movies, cowboy movies or whatever, westerns that are in the 1800s. Yet this flag flew over some, who knows, maybe a school, or maybe it was on somebody's casket back in the 1800s. It's mind-boggling to me that this flag actually still exists to this day, having flown so proudly or being displayed proudly back then. 45 stars, Oklahoma. Well, I kind of hit a dead spot there for a while. You know, I was kind of digging pretty deep back into history, and you know what happens when people have something that's really old. You know, the first thing they think is, boy, this thing's got to be worth a lot of money, you know, and so they're not letting them go too easily. But I just keep my eyes open. And every once in a while, somebody'd say, you know, we found this old flag when we were cleaning out that barn, and it just wouldn't seem right to try to, you know, put it on eBay or something. You know, we understand you have a flag collection. Would you be interested in this old flag? Well, my next flag was ratified in 1891. And that's, 130 years ago, when Wyoming became a state. And that flag had 44 stars. Gotta be really careful with this one because it really wants to come apart. I just told them they have to be really careful with this one because you can probably see right through the flag and see me standing behind it. That's how threadbare it's become. This was my oldest flag for a while. It's definitely showing its age. This one was issued in 1891, and it was the flag officially for 5 years in this nation. I cherished this one. I couldn't believe I had a flag and somehow come across a flag this old and this beautiful. One of my most prized possessions. And I want to tell you that even though these flags aren't current with the number of stars, you'll notice that we don't let them touch the floor. Because at one time they were the official flag of the United States of America, and they're still treated with that same level of reverence and respect. The next flag I want to show you has kind of an interesting story, and it's very similar to the one that I started off with about the 48 stars and the zigzag pattern. what year was it in here? 1890 was a big year for states ratifying the Constitution and becoming part of the Union. Montana, North Dakota, South Dakota, and Washington State were set to become the next part of our Union. And flag companies started making flags with what would be the next increment, which would be 42 stars. This is a 42-star flag. It's 6 rows of 7 stars. 6 times 7. This one's very old. It's like tissue paper, isn't it? 42 stars. But then something weird happened. Remember I told you on the 4th of July they make the new flag official? Idaho. I don't know what they were thinking in Idaho. Maybe they're smart Alecs in Idaho. Maybe they just like messing with stuff. Idaho decided to ratify the Constitution and become the next state, and they did it on July 3rd. Well, I can tell you, if I was running a flag company, I would have been pretty ticked off at the state of Idaho, because they'd made all these flags that were 42 stars, and then at the very last minute, Idaho says, "Hey, what about me?" So this actually never became an official flag of the United States. 42 stars. So on that 4th of July of 1890, the flag went to 43 stars, not 42. And it was 1891 that Wyoming became, remember the one we just showed you? So there's only 1 year that the flag had 43 stars. And if I could find one of those, I'd probably buy it, because that's extremely rare. Just like the 49-star flag. It was only 1 year, they didn't make that many of them. So they're very, very hard to find. I don't have one. But I do have one more flag to show you. And this one came when Colorado became a state in 1877. Now, let's just think about that for a second. 1877. Abraham Lincoln was assassinated in 1865. We all know about Abraham Lincoln and about all the great achievements he had as our president, 16th president. Whoever owned this next flag, which was issued in 1877, 12 years later, was probably alive when Lincoln was president. And I think about that whenever I pick up this flag and I look at it. This flag was owned by somebody who was alive when Lincoln was the president. You're holding a piece of history in your hands. This flag, if you pull too hard, it will come apart. It's full of holes from moths and who knows, weather, time. This flag has 38 stars, and it's the oldest one in my collection. I actually have 2 of these. And in this case, I'm not showing you my nicer one. My other one is actually in really nice condition, surprisingly. But I look at this one and I see all the marks on it. I see all the holes in it, the tears, the stains. And I think about how our history didn't come easy. The development of our nation didn't come easily. It came with people sacrificing. It came with wars. It came with hard work, tenacity. And I think in some ways this flag, which is one of my most prized possessions, except for my Jeep, I think it represents a lot of what it took to make this nation what it is. I cherish this flag as much as I cherish every flag, as much as I cherish my citizenship of the United States of America and my veteranship having served. So thank you very much for allowing me to display these beautiful flags to you. I hope you take something from it like I do.
Thank you, Mr. Lucier. The chorus has one more song planned, and that is Land That We Love. Very nice, thank you, chorus. We have one more section of the program, which is going to be Mr. Cabraro presenting the Robert E. Kelly Character Award.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Thank you. I stand before you today to introduce to you one of Hollis Brookline Middle School's most prestigious awards. The Robert E. Kelly Award is named after one of our local veterans. It was about 20 years ago that Robert Kelly approached the middle school administration and asked if there were ways to include our veterans into the middle school curriculum. Out of this suggestion came some of our most treasured traditions, this Veterans Day Assembly, for example, the senior lunches, and probably most importantly in past years, the 8th graders meeting with veterans before the trip to Washington, D.C. to prepare them for the memorials and monuments they would see there. These are but a few of the ways that Hollis Brookline Middle School has come to honor the service and sacrifice of our veterans and their families. When Robert Kelly died a few years ago, careful reflection was made about how to honor his memory. In discussing Robert Kelly, these qualities about him rose to the surface. Robert Kelly was a friend to everyone. He was famous for both his love of his country and for his sometimes offbeat sense of humor. He was possessed of a genuine humility and an industrious work ethic. He was always willing to pitch in and help wherever that help was needed. The decision was made to create an award and to name it after him. Each year, one 8th grader, based on the qualities that Robert Kelly so effortlessly exhibited, would be chosen to receive this award. In the spring, the 8th graders will be asked to reflect on the qualifications of the award, and each student will be asked to nominate the one member of their class that he or she feels best embodies the qualities of Robert E. Kelly. The faculty and staff will be asked to do the same thing. The 8th grade winner of the Robert E. Kelly Award will be announced at the assembly on the last day of school. So today, I hope to plant a seed in the minds of our 8th graders. Think about the qualities I just described to you, so in the spring, when you're asked to do so, you are able to nominate a classmate for this very special award. And I'd say one more thing to add. The names of our past winners are on display in the front office. If you ever get a chance to pass through the front office, there's a great plaque there with all of the past winners on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cabraro. So every year, Veterans Day is a reminder of something that we can all give thanks to, and they are our veterans. Thank you for coming today. The honor is ours. We wish you a happy and healthy Veterans Day and look forward to seeing you again soon. Students, please show our veterans our appreciation for all the sacrifices they have made by a round of applause. Thank you all. In past years, we've had veterans line up, but due to continuing to keep some protocols in place, safety measures, we're going to have 8th graders just dismiss. Veterans can hang around, and then our chorus group, if you want to come down and say hello and thanks, that will be fine. But we'll start with the back section. We're going to leave out that exit. We're going to go to rock for about 10 more minutes, and then at 9:15 at that bell,